Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Brian Smith with another edition of the Daily Night. Today, I am going to detail a few items about Tulane. It's probably going to be a little surprising to people considering they're a 1-7 football team, but they actually have quite a bit of talent. They've had a little bit of bad luck, and quite frankly, it's just a tough schedule. They played, I believe, 4 teams in the top 25. So I'm going to break down a couple of things for their offense as well as their defense, and a little mention out on the special teams as well. They played Cincinnati this past weekend, a common opponent with UCF. Cincinnati is nowhere near playing as well as they were a few weeks ago for whatever the reason. But with that stated, it is a common opponent. So let's jump right in with segment one and talk about the offense first. There are 2 things that I want to note, and there's a possible third depending on what happens on Saturday, and we probably won't know until the game starts. I'll get to that last here in segment one. First off, this is an offensive line that is very, very well coached. UCF's defensive line and their front in general has played well of late. That's good. But they're going to be challenged for 2 reasons. Number one, the line stays on their blocks. They move to the second level to pick up the linebackers. And finally, and most importantly, the running backs follow through and they pick the holes correctly. When you combine the 2, you run the football. They did well. Not just running the ball against Cincinnati, they gashed Cincinnati. They punched them in the face. And Cincinnati had their plays, by all means. But when you have the following, I'll just bring up the complete statistic here. This surprised the heck out of me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I saw this coming or anything of that nature. But Tulane had 45 carries for 187 yards against Cincinnati. They smacked them in the face. They just couldn't finish drives. And again, that's 0.3 here in segment 1. But when you can run the ball like that, you can be competitive with anybody. Their offensive coordinator and their new O-line coach, their former Notre Dame guy, one of them played at Notre Dame and he was a lineman there. They run zone, they run power, they run downhill. Here we come. The other part of that is they got 2 NFL running backs in terms of just raw talent, guys that could at least be on a practice squad, if not make a roster. How that happens at Tulane, I have no idea, but they do. Here's the rushing totals for this year, just all the way down the line, game 1 through game number 8 for them. And again, they're 1-7, so this is bizarre, right? This is bizarre. 100 yards, 294, 139, 90, 124, 94, 194, and then the aforementioned 187 against Cincinnati. That's pretty impressive. The last 4 opponents in order are East Carolina, Houston, Southern Methodist, and Cincinnati. 4 good football teams. That's the type of situation that UCF's going against. And again, I was a little haphazardly kind of laughing to myself yesterday at the press conference with Coach Malzahn, because he said, this is, it's going to sound crazy, but this is a pretty good football team. I know they're 1-7, but they are. I was impressed with them on film. And I'm thinking, okay, coach speak. Coach speak. They're 1-7. They suck. I hadn't seen a down of them. Didn't know nothing. Straight up. I watched about 3 minutes of film. And I'm like, holy crap. Their offensive line is getting after it. And they got running backs that can make you miss. And they got a running back that will make you look like a bug in front of a Mack truck. They've got a thunder lightning combination. Doesn't matter which one's in the backfield at the time. Doesn't matter who starts. They can both beat you up. And they can both make you miss, etc. But one's just a little faster than the other. One's a little more powerful than the other. The key here, UCF needs to start fast against their rushing attack. If not, it could be a problem. There's no way around that. They have not had any downside to their rushing attack per se. They just try to get 3-4 yards and beat you up. Their stats are a little bit skewed on this too, because there was a huge sack. As I've stated many times on this show and on my site, Inside the Knights, that goes against rushing totals. College football screws that up really bad. So it's like a 20-yard loss. They should have ran for over 200 yards against Cincinnati, the team that's in the Associated Press poll, I believe, ranked number 2 or 3, whatever it is. You can run the football. As for the players in question, just so you know their names, Cameron Carroll and Tyjae Spears. Both of them average over over 5 yards carry. And more importantly, it doesn't matter which one's in the game. They can both run inside zone, which is the preeminent, most important play in football at this time. Doesn't matter what level you talk about, because everything is based off of it in play action and run game, etc. Everybody uses it in some capacity. They run it well. Again, Chip Long, who's down there, he's a good coach. They have the ability to run the ball downhill, and that's play action. With that, they do have the conundrum with the passing game because Pratt, their normal starting quarterback, has been banged up. That's point 3, but to point 2, it's going to impact the following guys. The receiving core is really unique because they've got 9 guys with 10 or more catches. 9. That's really bizarre. It's usually 3 or 4 guys kind of like dominate, and then there's a big drop off and you have like 4 or 5 guys with like 3 to 6. Backup tight end, backup running back, etc. Their leading receiver is a tight end with 24 catches through 8 games. Now, I don't know if there have been injuries. I do not know. But showing the game stats, 8, 7, 8, 8, 8, 8. I mean, it's maybe they just got banged up part of games and missed, but they actually played, so the stats a little skewed. But to be that balanced is unbelievable. And then the 10th guy has 9 catches. I have no idea which guy to feature. So while point 2 here in segment 1 is about the receiving core, I have no idea what UCF's going to face, and that is a pain for UCF's defensive coordinator and, well, just the entire staff, really, because what you do against them impacts the offense. You need to figure out how to cover and double cover if you need to at any point against any team you play. And the tight end, Tyrick James, leads him with 24, but the next guy's 16. Then 15, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's crazy. They don't have a, per se, deep threat that's catching the ball a ton, but that doesn't mean they can't run. There's just not as much film. You're going to be doing some guesswork. I don't like that, and I guarantee you that Travis Williams and David Gibbs, the co-coordinators on defense, don't like it either. Who are we going to feature? Yeah, they can watch film and they can grade it out, but there's still not as many reps to base your information on. That's a yay, nay. The checkbox, yes or no, however you want to say it. So I'm a little concerned about that because, again, the final point here in segment 1, and that's the quarterback situation. Pratt's may or may not play. He's a good quarterback. I saw him play in high school. He played at Deerfield Beach down in the greater Fort Lauderdale area. He can throw the deep ball. He's mobile. He's a kid that can make plays. He did not, however, play against Cincinnati because he was concussed. He was in protocol, did not get the opportunity to make the start. Good football players like that are going to miss games no matter what. Just, it's a rough sport. It is what it is. But how do you prepare when you don't know if a guy is going to play at quarterback? In this case, it actually benefits them in one possibility. And I don't like to say anything particular about guys, but it's just true. Watching Kai Horton play, he was a freshman that came in from Texas to play for Tulane. It's pretty clear. He's not ready. They had first down inside the 20 or right at the 20, and he just went into a catastrophe segment on trying to get away from some very athletic defensive players for the Bearcats, and it ended up being a game changer. One play, that play I mentioned about 20-yard loss, first series, boom, they would go right down the field, but then he just makes a mental error. Once he saw the pass rush, he looked down, didn't look at his receivers. Very common, can happen. He is terrible right now. He's terrible. If you get pressure on him, he folds. He will look down. He will lose his receivers. In the last 2 games, UCF has 10 sacks. Let me say that again. In the last 2 games, UCF has a combined 10 sacks. There is no reason, if Kai Horton is the quarterback, UCF should not stomp a mud hole in Tulane. Now, he may improve some. I get it, but it would be his second start. He's not ready. It's a problem. We just, as fans watching UCF, we went through that some with Mikey Keene. You're not going to make that transition in 2 games. You're just not. Is he a good football player? Yeah, he's a Texas kid they brought in. They're not going to bring in some Texas kid just randomly to come down to New Orleans and play at Tulane. I guarantee if I turn on his high school film, he can throw it. The coverages, the speed, all of that is just different at the collegiate level. He's not ready. If Pratt plays, that's different. Here's the situation with Pratt His percentage is a little low. I'm a little surprised about this. It's 59%. I figured it'd be mid 60s, but 1,598 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 picks. He is legit. He's a sophomore, again, out of the Fort Lauderdale area. If he plays, the game can be totally different, because if UCF doesn't come in with the right mindset and they can't stop the run and he can run play action, Tulane can absolutely win this game if they jack around with them. This is one of those games, if you're a gambler, and no offense, you're done for gambling, but if you are, stay away from this game, because I don't care what Tulane says. I don't care what the young man says. Nobody has a freaking clue how much Pratt's going to play, and he completely changes the game. Do not do it. Resist the urge to bet on this game. He may start and come out after a series. Concussions are weird. Stay away from this game. Very good football player. The backup is not. Nobody has a freaking clue. To be honest, Vegas should take this game off the board if they haven't already, because concussed quarterbacks, that's just a disaster. It's just as a disaster. With that, Pratt is also a player, as I mentioned a little bit ago, he can move around some. A little bit like the quarterback from East Carolina, but a little more mobile. A little smaller frame guy, kind of the guy that looks like a two-guard in basketball almost. Maybe not quite that tall. He's probably 6'2", something like that. But he's an athletic kid. I'm not saying he's going to be coming out here and running read option all day. He's not. Even when he was in high school, he didn't have to do that very much. At Deerfield, you certainly don't have to with their athletes. But the point is this. He will make the pocket move. He'll make a guy miss in the pocket, then dump it off or throw it away. UCF will need to try to contain him, not on the same level as Malik Cunningham or the quarterback from Navy or any other quote-unquote truly mobile quarterback. But if he's in the game, he can move. The other kid can move some, but he's just tentative. They will destroy Horton, in my opinion, if he plays. I have no faith in Tulane winning this game if he's quarterback. And I'm not trying to pick on him. He's just not ready. With that said, before I go into segment 2, here's your question going into segment 2. If UCF gets the opportunity to play them and Pratt does play, should they come after him? Again, he's coming off a concussion. He may not be thinking clear. Right? That's what a concussion is. Or should they sit back more and make him think and play zone and mix it up post-snap, making, just trying to be complicated in a math equation? Which would you do? Come after the young man or sit back? Of course, you could do a little of both. With me, I would come after him some to make him look down, because if after you've been hit and you've had to leave a game because of a concussion, I don't care what the man will say, you're going to be a little bit scared. It's human nature. That's just me. Now, segment 2, talk a little bit about their defense and what I saw. There was a play that Desmond Ritter had for Cincinnati, the quarterback, where he just made a horrific read at the end of the first half. I mean, it was terrible. He threw down the middle, looked like the guy was open, but the safety, who was by himself, came across and picked it. Desmond threw it short. He threw it late. He stared at the guy, did everything that you shouldn't do. Guy picks it off. It's what it was a freebie. Besides that, I didn't see anything that I would go, uh-oh, look out for Tulane secondary. This is another team. And again, you can't stare down the middle of the field and throw late. I don't care what level it is. It ends badly. I don't know what they're going to do, but UCF probably has a chance to throw the ball down the field. They hit some shots this past weekend, and they should continue to do that. No doubt. 2, based on last week, this is the first time I've been able to say this with Mikey Keene as the quarterback. We're looking at a situation where the other team has to think, hey, they hit some shots. We got to pick our poison here. Do we run at them and bring down our safeties early? Because Isaiah Bowser is a great football player. I'm going to say that every week. It's the same storyline there. Then you bring in Johnny and you bring in Mark, etc. This is a loaded running back group. Or do we mix it up? What do we do? It's a young quarterback. We could still maybe get a pick from him. He's thrown a couple goofy passes in every game. You're like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Mikey? Be curious to see what they do, but at least you have the threat of over the top, and Alec Holler being a definitive part. I believe it was 4 catches for 87 yards last week. That helps the offense so much because they have to take those safeties, technically speaking, and shrink them towards the middle of the field and try to keep away from the seams and the posts that tight ends traditionally run. If they don't, that's fine, but then you can hit Holler again. The one touchdown was a bust, but he's a pretty good athlete in open space. If you just put a linebacker on him, good luck. I mean, Tulane's not the most athletic defense. There's no nice way to say that either. They got some athletes, but they don't have the same kind of guys that we're talking about at Cincinnati or Houston, not in my opinion. And overall, I mean, they got a few that are pretty good, but they're just okay. And then the final piece to that, in the front 7, they got guys that can move and all that, but they don't have anybody that's just super twitchy. Hey, this guy was under-recruited. He's going to be a second-day pick in the NFL. I don't see that. It's just one game of watching film, and I'm trying to watch a lot of guys, so it's not the best way to do it. You're trying to do an overall evaluation. But just watching them on film, they're defensive ends and tackles. They're just guys. And it's why they, quite frankly, aren't very good on defense. They give up just a ton of points. Yeah, their opponents are scoring 40.9. That's terrible. And one of their opponents is not Division I. Their defense is bad. UCF has a chance not only to win and win going away, even with Pratt playing, by the way, it's still possible, but they have a chance to get better. They have a chance to work on things they didn't necessarily think they would, because they could be up something like 24-7 at half, especially if Kai Horton's the quarterback. Second half, if that's the case, and UCF's not working on stuff and rotating guys more, there's a problem. That will be on the players, not the coaches. Not the coaches, the players. That's about up here. Coaches at all levels say the same thing. You have to take each opponent the same. Players never do it. They're going to look at that 1-7 record, and we're all going to know it. Standing around watching the game at your house, be in the press box, fans in the stadium, we're going to know it. How much energy do you have against a team that shouldn't beat you? They could if everything lined up perfectly. I mean, they've been competitive with Oklahoma, and they were competitive with Cincinnati. But they shoot themselves in the foot and they have a turnover, a bad play, sack, something. Tulane self-destructs. That is who they are. And defensively, they don't have enough depth. So if you get a chance in the second half to work on Joey Gatewood throwing the ball, getting Johnny Richardson the ball in different ways. I mean, they've done a pretty good job at expanding that. Mark Anthony, Richard. Yeah, I mean, there's just on and on. Nate Craig Myers being more involved with the passing game. Not only can you win this game, you can do something to help you the following week, and that's prepare for SMU. Gus Malzahn will never admit that, but that's something that coaches do. What can we do to get better to play our following opponents? You want to get younger guys in, guys at second, third string. They need to be able to beat the bejesus out of Tulane in the first half so they can move some of those guys in, some of the freshmen, some of the sophomores, some of the transfer, whatever. They have to be able to do that. If you can't do it against Tulane, you're sure as heck going to be in trouble playing the Mustangs up in Dallas the next week. Final point before I get out of here. UCF's defense, as I mentioned, 10 sacks. That should, at some point, you would think, put Mikey Keene in the offense in a position for a quick strike. Think back to the Navy game, the first game for Keene. He threw a touchdown right off the bat. Boom, throws a pass, and it's touchdowns. One of the very first plays, not the first play. When they get sudden change, they need to knock the wind out of Tulane. There's going to be a play or two early in the game, if Kai Horton especially is the quarterback, where they can take the ball away. Can't drop it, got to have the interception, etc. That's always the case. But a game like this, you can just knock the game out of the water. They're not going to stop UCF's rushing game. They're not going to stop their passing game. If you can get a couple short fields in addition to that, it could be 28-0 at halftime. Got to make it happen. When you get a chance to stomp on somebody, you have to stomp on them. There is no in between. Stomp. So with that, I'm going to have some more stuff up on the Knights and the Green Wave over the next couple of days. Got some recruiting stuff coming up. Look for some more recruiting news in the very near future. I expect a commitment or two by early December. And then, of course, signing day is the 15th of December. So just a heads up. But everybody have a safe day. It's been a great opportunity to check out some film and talk about it. Everybody be good.